It's time for episode 92 of The Crisis Show here on Google Hangouts, on YouTube, on Twitter, and wherever else you have this link around the world. Good evening from New York. My name is Rich Klein. I'm president of Rich Klein Crisis Management and founder and host of The Crisis Show. Tonight, we're going to talk about these two twin tragedies that happened yesterday. In fact, they happened very close in time with each other. And first of all, our hearts and prayers go out to the victims of both the train crash in Valhalla, New York, as well as to the victims and families in Taiwan in that terrible plane crash that by now so many people have seen, that webcam video, that dash cam video showing that plane come out of the air. So two major transportation stories in the news around the world today, and we thought we'd take a short look at them to talk about leadership in crisis management and crisis communications. So first of all, let's turn to the Metro North crash, give you a little background. This was a rush hour commuter train that left the world famous Grand Central Station. By the way, I'm there all the time. Grand Central Station, Metro North train ran from New York City, Manhattan, to about 25 miles north into Westchester County. It was an express train to the community known as Chappaqua. That is actually the same town where the Clintons live, for those of you who may not know. About 20, 25 miles north of New York City. What happened, as we know now, is a woman in an SUV got stuck on the at the railroad crossing. The train did not have time to stop, crashed into the SUV, and that caused the third rail to go through the first car of that train, caused an enormous fire, and that's where you had the deaths and injuries. Tragically, 6 people were killed, at least 15 injured. The silver lining in this incident is that the Level 1 Trauma Center, the Westchester County Medical Center, which is known very well here in New York State, is also in Valhalla. So the first responders, who did a great job, as they always do around here, they were able to transport the victims fairly quickly to the medical center, which is and has been prepared for this kind of incident. And from the little bit of the presser that I saw of the medical center today, they did a fine job in communicating what was going on their side of things. So you have a lot of moving parts with a situation like this. Of course, you have local government, you have the MTA, which is based in New York but covers the tri-state area, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. They run this rail system. You have Westchester County Executive Rob Astorino, a leader of Westchester County, who was very visible in this crisis as well. You had, of course, the governor of New York made a trip down overnight, early this morning, was on the scene, inspected the scene. He had something to say. And of course, you had the people at the medical center, the doctors and staff who are trained for this kind of emergency. So couple of things I want to say. First of all, I was watching this evening the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, which is charged by the part of the U.S. government that is charged with investigating these kinds of transportation accidents. So they are based in Washington, D.C. They get up here, and very quickly today, they got on the ground and began assessing the situation. They did a couple of things right, and that they always do, but it's a real good lesson for anyone in crisis communications. Before they left Washington, they gave a press briefing talking about the team that was going here, what they were planning to do, the things they were going to look for. They got here, they spent a good part of the day doing preliminary investigation, and then early this evening here in New York, they gave another press conference and did a great job at walking the media and the public through the kinds of things that they do look at, such as the rail crossing, such as the track themselves, interviews with the engineer and passengers and so forth. So they walked us through the process without saying that they knew exactly what had happened. They gave some idea about what they think happened, but they said, look, this is still an ongoing investigation, but here's what we're going to look at. So they did a fine job. So those of you in government, in business, in nonprofits, keep an eye on the kind of emergency crisis management these guys do, the National Transportation Safety Board. I've been watching them for a couple of years now, and they just do a tremendous job at communicating effectively with the public. Also on their website, within minutes of that news conference, there were a series of tweets about what they had just said on their website and on Twitter, of course. So very interesting. The National Transportation Safety Board, check them out for some guidance on how to respond to a crisis. The other agency involved in this here on the local side was the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. And they released a statement today. I would say this statement probably could have been released yesterday, but they did get a statement out today, February 4th. It's from the chairman and CEO, Thomas Prendergast, and the Metro-North president, Joseph Giletti. And I'm going to just read some parts of this. It says they're collaborating with the NTSB on the investigation into the crash. And the next paragraph, of course, is a quote from Thomas Prendergast, and it reads as follows: the entire MTA family's thoughts are with the relatives and loved ones of the victims of last night's tragedy. We are tremendously saddened by this tragic incident, and our thoughts and prayers go out to all of them. We also thank the first responders who assisted with safely removing the passengers from the trains and transporting those who were injured to area hospitals. And we extend our gratitude to the American Red Cross, local hospitals, and communities who have provided care and assistance during this difficult time, and Town of Mount Pleasant Supervisor Carl Fulgenzi for making Town Hall available. Then there's a quote from Giletti, the president of the Metro-North Railroad. We want Metro-North customers to know they can remain confident that their safety and the safety of our employees is always the first priority in everything we do. We will work closely with the NTSB and local officials to determine the exact cause of this tragedy, and we work to ensure such incidents are not repeated. But of course, a little over a year ago, there was another tragedy on Metro-North at the Spuyten Duyvil station, and that was reportedly because the engineer had fallen asleep. So this is the second accident, and this one is being reported as the worst in Metro-North's history, but two major incidents in which there were deaths and serious injuries. So Metro-North has its work cut out for them in terms of reputation. Already, people like Chuck Schumer, the senior senator from New York, is calling for some quick response in terms of what happened and why. But that's typical of politicians. But there is pressure, I think, pressure from the public on this one to find out what happened. The NTSB is not going to rush its investigation. And I think everything the NTSB does in terms of giving out information, that's only going to help give cover to Metro-North. If there was any liability for Metro-North, the NTSB investigation will move through and do its job, and that will, for Metro-North's sake, for their sake, I hope that that the blame in this will probably end up. Well, I shouldn't say it's probably. The preliminary investigation so far is leading towards that the engineer on the train did everything humanly possible to stop the train, and that this car that was stuck on the tracks was the cause of this tragedy. As Governor Andrew Cuomo said this morning, sometimes accidents just happen, as tragic as they are, and there's no blame. They happen. And this may be one of those situations. And the NTSB will get to the bottom of it. There's a lot of data that they could pull out. They said they already downloaded some information into a computer from the train that will give them some preliminary information. But they're going to look at everything. They're going to look at the crossing signal, the traffic conditions. They're going to do a lot of interviews of the passengers. And thank God there were many survivors who were able to get out, many of them on their own, by the way, in the back of the train. And that should lead to some conclusion down the road. But the NTSB has done a good job so far. Metro-North leadership has sometimes come under criticism here in New York. This was an okay draft statement. You can look at it at the MTA website. It's on their website. It's pretty standard. The important thing here, folks, is that to always express your thoughts and prayers with the victims first before you do anything else, before you place blame, before you give the facts out. The very first thing is express condolences and prayers for the victims. That goes for whether you're a CEO of a company or the head of a major railroad system anywhere in the world. That's really important. Okay, so we'll keep monitoring this story. It's obviously a tragedy for those involved. I was talking earlier today with a friend of mine whose name is who's the editor of Inside Chappaqua magazine, and she's been on the ground reporting on some of this, and we're going to put in our show notes tomorrow some of her up-close reporting. She is from Chappaqua. She puts out the major magazine there and has been on the ground doing a lot of interviews, and I think she even knew one of the victims. So I'll be looking forward to getting her input. We tried to get her on the show tonight, but she's been busy, obviously covering the story. But we will put some show notes up for those of you watching on video after the fact. We will have some of her reporting as well. So the other story, of course, is that across the world in Taiwan, that's a horrible story that so many of you have already seen. This TransAsia plane come out of the air, crash into concrete, and then into a river in Taiwan. It's a TransAsia airline, TransAsia Airway plane that clipped this elevated road bridge and then plunged into the Keelung River in Taiwan yesterday. At least 25 people were killed at press time, but miraculously there were survivors, and the rescue effort has been underway. But now it's my understanding is it's a recovery operation, not a rescue operation. So in Taiwan, of course, this is the second accident of this airline this year. So TransAsia is going to have a lot of problems with their reputation. The CEO did apologize, of course. That was smart. But 2 accidents same year, that's a big problem for your future. I was watching some CNN coverage, and they had this analyst on whose name eludes me, but he made some really good points about the rapid growth of the airline industry in this part of the world. Lots of regional airlines popping up, and they're very busy. They're adding flights. But one of the things he said is missing from this is that even if you have a lot of regulation about procedures, if the companies don't enforce those procedures through what am I talking about? Like training. He was talking about flight time, training of the pilots, emergency training. What do you do in a certain situation if you lose an engine, and so forth. So that was really interesting to me, that this growth in Asia of the flying population there may have led to this, what we see, at least on this side of the world, as a series of airline accidents in the last 2 or 3 years, including the 2 TransAsia accidents. So the other thing that's very, very interesting to me is, when you had an airline crashes in the past, very often we don't see them happen. We'll see the plane in the water, or we'll see the after the rescue. This was a fascinating piece of, you are there watching this as it happened. This dash cam caught the plane in almost perfect resolution coming down, and then immediately you had other people on the ground filming what was happening when this plane went into the river, and the immediate aftermath, the rescue operation as well. So we're living in a world of instant news. You're watching these live tragedies, and of course it's horrible for so many of us to watch these things, much like this horrific ISIS video very recently. It was very real, it was very recent, and some media outlets chose to show it. The point I'm trying to make, though, is as a leader, as an executive, as a government leader or business leader, be aware that when you're in a crisis, when a crisis happens to your company, very often the world is watching it as it happens. So you have to be able to respond in real time on social media, primarily on Twitter and Facebook, if you have those accounts, and you should. What I see a lot of leaders where they make mistakes in this area is they will put up a statement a day later on their website and hope people find it. Well, the truth of the matter is people are not going to your website in a crisis. If they're not tuned into the broadcast and cable networks on TV, they are on your Facebook page and on your Twitter account. And if you don't have them, they're still there looking at what's being said about you. So these two tragedies are great examples of getting out in front of the story. As bad as they are, there's often this mentality of waiting till we have all the facts in before we issue a statement. Big mistake. And for those attorneys out there advising their clients that way, I suggest to you strongly that can be a mistake for a company's reputation. You may save them of some liability, but if they go out of business because of their reputation, you haven't helped them as an attorney advocating for a client. So you have to think about this part of this changing world today, that we are seeing crises and tragedies happening in real time. You have to respond as close as you can in real time. What does that mean? Well, in the old days, it would be you had a few hours or a half a day to get out a statement, or even the next day, because, well, I'm older. So in the old days, it was the next day's newspaper or that evening's broadcast. Now, within 15 or 20 minutes of a crisis, it's going viral on Twitter. There's YouTube videos, there's first-person accounts, there's citizen reporters. And all of this you have to wrap your arms around. And all of this you have to monitor. And all of this you have to respond to with a unified voice of your company or organization. How do you do that? Well, I'm not going to spend all my time explaining how to do it here. But in short, you need to make sure you have created holding statements for these kinds of crisis situations. If you're the head of a railroad system or the CEO of an airline, you can write these statements well in advance. And if you're in the transportation business, you'd be a fool not to have these kinds of statements prepared in advance. And then you fill in the blanks with the details, the facts, deaths and injuries, location, and so forth. But there's no excuse to say we didn't have time to write a news release or issue a statement or hold a news conference. These things can be planned for in advance most of the time. The other thing to think about, as this is particularly for those of you in business, is that as we learn about the deaths of victims in tragedies like this, very often they are high-profile individuals. So it's possible that you're the head of a company and you lose one of your senior people. It doesn't matter who it is, senior or junior, but you lose a person in one of these tragedies, as was the case in the Metro-North crash yesterday. And that company, it was a financial company, had to issue a statement, and they did a beautiful job of paying a nice tribute to the life of this gentleman who was killed in the Metro-North crash. So these are just kind of things that you have to think about in all your crisis management planning. You can't plan for every crisis, but you can plan a little bit for a lot of them. Okay, so if you want to tweet about anything you heard here on this abbreviated edition of The Crisis Show, please use #TheCrisisShow. You could also visit www.thecrisisshow.com for our past episodes. And finally, you can write to me, rich@richkleincrisis.com, and I'll get back to you pretty quickly with any thoughts you may have about a crisis that you're having. Again, our hearts and prayers go out to the victims of both these horrible tragedies that coincidentally happened within a few hours of each other. At least from my perspective, that was the case. And we're going to continue to do shows like this because it's really important that you understand that these kind of transportation tragedies, these kind of high-profile stories have a domino effect. They affect government, they affect business, and of course, they affect communities in which they occur. So again, thank you for watching very much. My name is Rich Klein, and good night from New York. We'll see you soon.